Captain Voss Meridian stumbled through the airlock of the UES Defiance, his uniform torn and bloodstained, his hands reaching blindly for the bulkhead. Where his eyes should have been, empty sockets wept tears of silver that crystallized on his cheeks like frost. The bridge crew froze in horror as their commander, the man who had single-handedly held the line at Proxima Station, groped his way forward like a broken ghost. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Nia Corvin stepped forward, her voice catching. She'd served under Meridian for 3 years, had seen him laugh at impossible odds and turn defeats into victories through sheer bloody-minded determination. This hollow-eyed wreck was not the man who'd led them into the Helix Nebula 6 weeks ago. "I can see you, Corvin." Meridian's voice was a rasp of broken glass. "I can see through you, past you, into you." His head turned with unnatural precision, tracking movement she hadn't made. "Your heart rate is elevated. Adrenaline spike. You're afraid of what I've become." The ship's physician, Dr. Lysander Vex, rushed onto the bridge with his medical kit. He'd been monitoring the shuttle's approach, had seen the thermal signatures, one human to cold, and something else entirely. "Captain, we need to get you to the medical bay immediately. Whatever the Vorthok did to you." "The Vorthok?" Meridian's laugh was acid. "They think they broke me, carved out my eyes to make me helpless, fed them to their queen while I watched. Through the holes in my skull." His head snapped toward Vex with predatory accuracy. "They don't understand. They gave me something better than sight." The silver tears continued to flow, but now Corvin could see they weren't tears at all. They moved with purpose, flowing upward against gravity, forming intricate patterns in the air around Meridian's face like living circuits. Where the droplets touched the bulkhead, metal seemed to sing with resonant frequency. The reconnaissance mission to the Vorthok breeding worlds, Meridian continued, his voice gaining strength. 67 humans sent to gather intelligence on their invasion fleet. 66 came back in pieces. I came back, changed. He turned toward the main view screen, where the star field sparkled with innocent beauty. "They're coming, Corvin. 3 days behind me, 1,000,000 ships, 1,000,000,000 creatures that see humans as nothing more than breeding stock and food." Commander Torith Blackstone, the ship's tactical officer, pulled up the long-range sensors. "Sir, we're detecting no anomalous readings in the 14 hours, 37 minutes. Meridian interrupted. "They'll drop out of hyperspace in the Kepler system first. Admiral Quintus will have his fleet there, 800 ships, cream of the Terra Defense Force. The Vorthok will swarm them like insects." His empty sockets fixed on Blackstone with impossible accuracy. "Quintus will order a fighting retreat to Luna. Standard protocol. Draw them away from Earth's population centers." "How can you possibly?" "Because I've seen it." The silver patterns around Meridian's face flared, casting strange shadows. "The Queen. When she devoured my eyes, she didn't just take my sight. She opened a door. I see their thoughts, their plans, their futures, and they." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They see mine." Dr. Vex stepped closer, medical scanner humming. The readings made no sense. Temporal displacement, quantum entanglement, neural pathways that shouldn't exist in human physiology. "Captain, you're exhibiting signs of chronological dissonance. Whatever they did to you has created some kind of temporal feedback loop." "The Vorthok Queen thinks she's clever," Meridian said, silver now flowing like mercury around his fingers. "She links her mind to her prey before feeding, likes to taste their despair, their helplessness. But human minds," he smiled, "and it was terrible. Human minds don't break the way they expect." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support and the soft pinging of sensors outside. Space looked calm, peaceful, but Corvin could feel the weight of approaching doom like a pressure in her chest. "They're going to lose," Meridian said softly. "Every fleet, every station, every colony. Humanity will fall, unless we give them something they've never encountered before." His head turned toward each crew member in turn, empty sockets seeing deeper than any eye. "They know how humans fight when we're afraid. They know how we die when we're hopeless. But they've never seen what happens when we fight knowing we're already dead." The silver tears stopped flowing. In the sudden stillness, Meridian stood straighter, his presence filling the bridge like gathering storm clouds. set course for the Kepler system. He commanded, "Maximum burn. We have a war to lose." The USS Defiance dropped out of hyperspace, 6 hours ahead of the Vorthok vanguard, emerging into a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen corpses. Admiral Quentis's mighty fleet had been reduced to debris fields that sparkled like deadly confetti. Against the black, the few surviving ships limped toward the outer system, their distress signals painting the void with desperate mathematics. "Jesus Christ," whispered Navigator Ellis Crane, his hands trembling over the sensor displays. They tore through 800 ships like paper. Captain Meridian stood at the center of the bridge, silver patterns now permanently etched around his empty sockets like ritual scarification. The strange tears had stopped flowing, but the metal of the ship itself seemed to respond to his presence, humming with sympathetic resonance. 43 minutes, 17 seconds. The Admiral lasted longer than I saw. Commander Corvin studied the tactical display with growing horror. "Sir, we need to retreat immediately. One destroyer against whatever did this." "No, Meridian's voice cut through her protests like a blade. "This is where it begins, where they learn that humans can't be predicted." He turned toward the communications station. "Lieutenant Voss, open a channel to the surviving Terra defense ships. All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Voss Meridian of the UES Defiance to all surviving TDF vessels. I know you're confused. I know you're afraid. But listen carefully, you're about to witness something the enemy has never seen." His empty sockets seemed to track movement across the battlefield. "Do not retreat. Do not attempt rescue operations. When I give the signal, ram the nearest Vorthok vessel at maximum velocity." The responses came back immediately, a chorus of disbelief and horror. "Defiance. This is Admiral Quentis aboard the Liberty's Edge. Are you insane? We have wounded." "Civilian, Admiral," Meridian interrupted, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the bridge crew's teeth ache. "How many crew do you have left?" A pause. 3,000, across 7 ships. "The Vorthok will capture you. They'll keep you alive for weeks, laying eggs in your bodies, feeding your consciousness to their young. Death is mercy." The silver patterns around his face pulsed with alien light. "But if you die here, fighting, you'll save millions." Space twisted around them as the Vorthok fleet emerged from hyperspace, a seething mass of organic vessels that looked like deep-sea nightmares crossed with spacecraft. They moved with perfect coordination, tentacles and weapon pods adjusting to target the scattered human survivors. The largest vessel, a cathedral of bone and chitin, pulsed with bioluminescent neural networks. "The Queen's ship," Meridian said softly. "She's aboard. She wants to gloat over her victory." His head turned toward Dr. Vex. "Doctor, how long can human consciousness survive in hard vacuum?" "Approximately 15 seconds before." "Enough." Meridian's hand found the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. In 60 seconds, I'm going to depressurize the entire ship. Anyone who wants to live through the next hour, get to the escape pods now." The bridge erupted in chaos. "Sir, you can't," Corvin began. "I can see the future, Commander, all possible futures, and in everyone where we run, where we try to be clever, where we follow protocol." His voice became thunder. "Humanity dies screaming." The Vorthok ships moved closer, weapon pods charging with malevolent energy. But instead of opening fire, they extended capture appendages, long tendrils tipped with paralyzing toxins. They wanted prisoners, breeding stock for their endless expansion. "Now," Meridian whispered. Dr. Vex's hands moved over his console before his conscious mind could object. Emergency decompression protocols engaged throughout the ship. Atmosphere vented into space in violent geysers. As bulkhead seals failed, on the bridge, emergency fields held just long enough for the senior staff to seal their helmets. The Vorthok vessels hesitated, their perfect coordination disrupted by confusion. This wasn't how prey behaved. Humans always fought for survival, always tried to preserve life. "All TDF ships," Meridian's voice came through the calm, distorted by the ship's dying systems. "Execute ramming speed. Show them what we are." The 7 surviving Terra defense vessels, their crews already dying from radiation and decompression, turned toward the alien fleet. engines screaming past redline. They accelerated into the Vorthic formation like spears thrown by gods. The used Defiance led the charge, its hull glowing cherry red from thermal stress. But instead of targeting the nearest enemy ship, Meridian guided them straight toward the Queen's massive vessel. The silver patterns around his ruined eyes flared like stars, and for one impossible moment, every human in the fleet could see what he saw: the network of neural connections that linked every Vorthic to their queen, the hierarchical consciousness that made them vulnerable. "She's watching," Meridian said as the Defiance's hull began to buckle from the strain. "She's feeling what we feel, learning what it means to be human." The first TDF ship, the destroyer Achilles, struck a Vorthic cruiser amidships. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star, vaporizing both vessels instantly. The Queen's mental scream echoed through the alien network, carrying with it the last thoughts of Captain Maria Santos: rage, defiance, and the absolute certainty that her death meant something. "Now she understands," Meridian whispered as the Defiance bore down on the Queen's ship, its hull disintegrating around them. "Humans don't die for victory. We die to make sure our enemies remember us." The collision tore through both vessels like a tsunami of molten metal and unleashed fury. In the twisted wreckage of fused human and Vorthic technology, Captain Meridian opened his eyes that were not eyes and saw the Queen dying slowly in a pool of bioluminescent ichor. Round them, the merged hulls groaned and sparked, atmosphere bleeding into space through 1,000 fractures. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, making the scene look like the inside of a beating heart. The Vorthic Queen was magnificent and terrible, 12 feet of chitinous grace, with neural tentacles that sparked with dying electricity. Her compound eyes, each the size of a human head, tracked Meridian's approach with something approaching respect. When she spoke, her voice was music made of screaming wind. "You see now." "As I see," her words came through the translation matrix in the wreckage. Each syllable cost her precious life force. "The paths of time, the weight of choice. You are no longer merely human." Meridian's boots crunched through debris as he approached. The silver patterns round his empty sockets pulsed in rhythm with the Queen's failing neural networks, creating a feedback loop that made both beings gasp in shared agony. "I see your fleet," he said. 900,000 ships, holding position at the edge of the system. "I see your confusion, your fear." The Queen's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Fear, we who devour civilizations fear nothing. But you," her massive form shuddered as internal organs began to fail. "You showed us something new. Your kind does not simply die. You weaponize death itself." Through the wreckage, they could hear the Vorthic fleet's communications, a harmonic chorus of confusion and rage. The Queen's psychic network, designed to control 1 billion minds across the galaxy, now carried the dying thoughts of 7 human crews. Every Vorthic felt Captain Santos's final moments, Lieutenant Commander Torres's last prayer, Dr. Kim's determination to save the lives depending on him. "They felt us die," Meridian said, understanding flooding through him like ice water. "Every one of them experienced human death, and it's breaking their unity." The Queen's eyes dimmed as neural fluid leaked from her skull. "We evolved perfect harmony, no individual suffering, no senseless sacrifice. When one dies, all grieve together. But your deaths," she convulsed, chitinous plates grinding against each other. "Your species embraces extinction, finds meaning in meaninglessness. It is madness. It's what makes us human." "Yes," the word was barely a whisper, "and it makes you dangerous beyond calculation." Meridian knelt beside the dying Queen, his hand finding her massive claw. The moment their flesh touched, the connection exploded through both their minds, a cascade of shared memory and sensation that spanned species and time. He saw the Vorthic homeworld, a paradise of perfect cooperation where individual will had been sacrificed for collective efficiency. He saw their expansion across the galaxy, consuming species after species, not from malice, but from biological imperative. And she saw Earth, humanity's beautiful, broken world where beings chose to die for abstract concepts like honor and love and hope. She felt the echo of every human war, every pointless sacrifice, every moment when someone chose the harder path simply because it was right. "Your fleet," Meridian gasped through the neural link. They're calling for retreat. Impossible. The mission parameters. They're afraid. For the first time in their evolutionary history, they're experiencing true fear. Not fear of death, fear of what death might mean. The Queen's compound eyes fixed on him with desperate intensity. You must stop this. The connection, it grows stronger. Every moment we remain linked. More of your madness spreads through our network. But Meridian was already moving, his enhanced perception tracking the quantum threads that connected him to the dying Queen, and through her to every Vorthik in the fleet. The silver patterns around his face burned like stellar fire as he poured human consciousness into the alien network. Memories of sacrifice, images of soldiers throwing themselves on grenades to save their comrades, mothers dying to protect their children, ordinary people choosing extraordinary deaths. Stop, the Queen screamed, her psychic voice echoing through 1,000 ship bridges. You're killing us all. No. Meridian replied, his own consciousness fragmenting under the strain. We're teaching you how to live. Across the Vorthik fleet, individual ships began breaking formation. Crew members, infected with human individuality, started questioning orders for the first time in their existence. Some turned their weapons on their own vessels rather than face the terrible burden of choice. Others simply shut down, overwhelmed by the weight of personal responsibility. The Queen's neural tentacles wrapped around Meridian's throat, but her grip was weak and growing weaker. You don't understand what you've done. Without unity, without purpose, we are nothing. You're free, Meridian said, his voice fading as his consciousness spread through the alien network. Like a virus of hope, and freedom is terrifying, but it's also. His body collapsed beside the Queen's, but his presence continued to burn through the Vorthik collective consciousness like wildfire. It's also beautiful. In the command ships of the Vorthik fleet, admirals who had never known doubt began to question their invasion. Warriors who had never felt fear discovered they were afraid not of death, but of causing unnecessary suffering. And for the first time in 10 million years of Vorthik expansion, an alien armada turned away from conquest and began the long journey home. The Queen's final breath carried a message through the dying neural link. What have you made us? But Meridian was already beyond hearing, his consciousness scattered across 900,000 minds, teaching them what it meant to choose. Colonel Rain Culver received the transmission from the Kepler system 6 hours after the last Vorthik ship had vanished into hyperspace. The message was fragmented, barely coherent, but its implications hit her like a physical blow. She stood in the command center of Titan Station, humanity's most heavily fortified outpost, watching the tactical displays that showed empty space, where the greatest alien armada in galactic history had been. Play it again, she ordered, her voice hoarse. The communication array hummed, filling the command center with static-laden words. This is automated beacon. Use Defiance. Captain Meridian. Successful. Infection protocol. Vorthik fleet. Retreating. Repeat. Infection protocol. Do not pursue. Dr. Helena Voss, the station's xenobiologist, looked up from her data pad with wide eyes. Infection protocol. That's not in any military manual I've ever seen. Because it was never supposed to exist, Culver replied grimly. She'd served with Meridian during the Centauri uprising, had seen him turn desperate situations into victories through sheer audacity. But this, he found a way to weaponize human consciousness itself. The command center's main screen shifted to show long-range sensor data from automated probes. The Vorthik fleet was indeed retreating, but their formation was chaos ships, moving independently, some turning back toward human space before correcting course. Others simply drifting as if their crews had abandoned their posts. Ma'am, called Lieutenant Petra Savage from the communications station. We're receiving reports from across the sector. The entire Vorthik invasion force is fragmenting. Some ships are attacking their own formations. Others have gone completely dark. Culver studied the data feeds, her tactical mind racing. Whatever Meridian did, it's spreading through their command structure like a plague. But if their unity is breaking down, the treaty worlds, Dr. Voss said suddenly, oh God, the client species, the implications hit everyone simultaneously. For 3 centuries, The Vorthik had maintained control over 17 different species through their psychic network. Entire civilizations had been reduced to biological components. In the alien war machine, their individual will subsumed into the collective consciousness. If that network was failing, get me Admiral Chen at Terra Command, Culver ordered. Priority Alpha. The holographic projector flickered to life, showing Admiral David Chen's weathered face against the backdrop of Earth's orbital defense grid. Colonel, I assume you've seen the reports. Sir, we need to mobilize every available ship. If the Vorthik network is collapsing, their client species are going to break free. The chaos alone will tear apart 17 star systems. Chen's expression was grim. It's already happening. We're tracking massive civil wars in the Rigel sector. The Vorthik garrison there has gone completely silent, and their slave species are turning on each other. 3 centuries of suppressed rage is exploding all at once. On the tactical displays, new reports continued to pour in. The aquatic Bendari had seized their water processing stations and were flooding Vorthik breeding grounds. The insectoid Skrull, engineered to be living weapons, had turned their biomechanical enhancements against their former masters, most terrifying of all. The Nexarius species of living crystalline entities had begun systematically destroying Vorthik infrastructure by destabilizing the quantum matrices that powered their technology. How many human ships can we deploy? Culver asked. Not nearly enough. We have maybe 400 vessels that aren't already committed to defense or rescue operations. Against 17 solar systems in chaos, Chen shook his head. We'll be lucky to save a fraction of the populations. Dr. Voss stepped forward, her face pale but determined. There might be another way. If Captain Meridian's consciousness is still active in the Vorthik network, if we can reach him. Absolutely not, Chen said immediately. What Meridian did was a one-way trip. We're not sacrificing more personnel to, sir. Culver's voice cut through the argument like a blade. I volunteer. The command center fell silent. Everyone understood what she was proposing to follow Meridian's path meant accepting neural modification that would strip away individual identity and spread human consciousness into alien minds. It was technological suicide with no guarantee of success. Chen's image flickered as he leaned forward. Colonel, I cannot authorize, then don't authorize it. But we both know it's the only option that has a chance of working. Culver turned to Dr. Voss. How quickly can you modify the neural interface? 6 hours, maybe 7. But the risks are irrelevant. Culver was already moving toward the laboratory. The Bendari homeworld has a population of 3 billion. The Skrull colonies house another 2 billion. If we do nothing, they'll all die in the chaos. As the colonel disappeared into the station's research section, Chen's hologram addressed the remaining staff. Prep the entire Titan station fleet for immediate deployment. If Colonel Culver succeeds in establishing control over the fragmenting network, I want our ships ready to provide humanitarian aid across 17 systems. Lieutenant Savage looked up from her console, her young face troubled. Sir, what if she doesn't succeed? Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays that showed the galaxy tearing itself apart. Then we do what humans have always done, Lieutenant. We improvise, we adapt, and we save who we can on the screens around them. The chaos continued to spread. Entire star systems that had known only Vorthik order for centuries were now battlegrounds where ancient grievances played out in violent symphony, and somewhere in the quantum foam between dimensions, Captain Meridian's consciousness continued to burn through alien minds, teaching them the terrible gift of individual choice. The revolution he had started was devouring the galaxy. Now it fell to others to determine whether that destruction would birth something better, or simply complete the work of mutual annihilation. In the laboratory, Dr. Voss began the delicate work of modifying neural interfaces that were never meant for human use, while Colonel Culver prepared for a journey that would either save billions of lives or add her voice to the chorus of consciousness spreading through the void. Either way, the age of Vorthik domination was ending. What would rise from its ashes remained to be seen. The neural interface felt like ice-cold mercury flowing through Colonel Culver's brain. As Dr. Voss activated the modified Vorthik technology, She convulsed against the restraints, her consciousness fragmenting into 1,000 pieces before reassembling itself in configurations that human minds were never meant to experience. Through the laboratory's reinforced windows, she could see the Titan station fleet preparing for deployment, 200 human vessels ready to launch into 17 systems drowning in chaos. Connection established, Dr. Voss announced, her voice tight with concentration. Neural pathways are integrating with the Vorthic network. Colonel, can you hear me? Culver's response came through speakers around the room, her voice layered with harmonics that made everyone's teeth ache. I can hear everything. Oh God, I can hear everything. Her body arched against the interface table as alien sensations flooded her nervous system. The network, it's not broken, it's infected. Meridian's consciousness is like a virus, spreading choice and individuality through every connection. The main display showed the tactical situation across the affected star systems. In the Rigel sector, Bendari water cities were at war with Vorthic air bases, massive aquatic forms breaching the surface to drag down atmospheric processors and geysers of superheated steam. The Skrull hive worlds had become slaughterhouses where biomechanical warriors, freed from collective control, turned their weapons on anything that moved, including each other. Colonel, we're detecting massive casualties across all 17 systems, reported Lieutenant Savage. The Nexari are destabilizing quantum cores. If they continue, entire star systems could collapse into artificial black holes. Through the neural link, Culver felt the pain of billions of creatures that had known only unity for centuries suddenly experiencing the terrifying isolation of individual consciousness. She reached out with her expanded awareness, trying to impose some kind of order on the chaos. But it was like trying to stop an avalanche with bare hands. There, she gasped, her consciousness touching something familiar in the quantum foam. Meridian. He's still there, still fighting. Her voice became stronger, more determined. He's trying to teach them, but they don't understand. They think choice means violence. They think freedom means revenge. On the tactical displays, Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communication array. All Titan station vessels, you are authorized for immediate deployment. Primary objective is civilian evacuation. Secondary objective is establishing humanitarian corridors. Be advised you are entering active war zones. The fleet launched in waves, human ships spreading across 17 solar systems like drops of water in an ocean of fire. The first vessels to reach the Bendari homeworld found themselves in the middle of an aquatic apocalypse. Vorthic orbital stations rained debris into the planet's vast seas, while massive cephalopod-like beings emerged from oceanic trenches to assault anything in the sky. Captain Morrison of the destroyer UES Intrepid found himself dodging bioelectric discharges from creatures the size of city blocks while trying to establish a rescue corridor. Titan Station, this is Intrepid. We're taking heavy fire from Bendari defense organisms. They're not distinguishing between us and the Vorthic. Through the neural interface, Culver felt Morrison's fear and determination. She reached out through the network, her consciousness brushing against the primitive minds of the Bendari warriors. For a moment, she touched their rage, 3 centuries of suppressed fury at being used as living water filters. In the Vorthic industrial complex, stand down, she broadcast through the alien network, her voice carrying harmonics that bypassed conscious thought. The humans are not your enemies. They come to help. The response was immediate and violent. Bendari warforms turned toward the human fleet with renewed fury, their bioelectric attacks intensifying. Dr. Voss monitored Culver's vital signs with growing alarm as neural feedback overloaded her. Systems, Colonel, you're pushing too hard. The interface can't handle this level of... They're not listening, Culver gasped, blood trickling from her nose. They're too angry, too afraid. They think any outside influence is another form of control. In the Skrull systems, Captain Rodriguez of the U's Vindication found herself in an even more desperate situation. The insectoid warriors, their biomechanical enhancements running wild without Vorthic control programs, had turned their hive ships into flying slaughterhouses. Carapaced forms the size of fighters screamed through space, their weapon pods firing indiscriminately at anything that moved. Mayday, mayday. Rodriguez's voice crackled through static. "We're being swarmed by approximately 10,000 individual Skrull fighters. Our point defense can't handle this volume of..." The transmission cut off as the Vindication disappeared in a ball of plasma. 17 other human ships died in the first hour, overwhelmed by creatures that had been designed as perfect weapons, but now lacked any tactical coordination. "We're losing them," Dr. Voss said, watching Kelver's neural patterns spike into dangerous territory. "The feedback is burning out her higher brain functions." But Kelver pressed deeper into the network, her consciousness fragmenting as she tried to reach every mind simultaneously. She found Meridian's presence at the center of the chaos, a burning star of human will that continued to pulse with determination even as it was torn apart by alien thoughts. "You're killing yourself," she told him through the quantum foam. "Dying isn't the point," came his response, fragmented across a million channels. Teaching them to live as together, they reached out through the network, not trying to control but to demonstrate. They showed the Bendari that their rage was justified, but that it could be channeled into rebuilding rather than destruction. They shared with the Skrull the concept of cooperation without subjugation. Most importantly, they taught the Nexari that their power over quantum forces could create rather than destroy. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Half the Nexari crystalline entities rejected the lesson and began destabilizing their own star systems out of pure spite. 3 Bendari city ships turned their weapons on their own population centers. The Skrull civil war intensified as some warriors accepted human concepts of honor while others interpreted them as weakness to be exploited. In the laboratory on Titan Station, alarms screamed as Kelver's body convulsed against the neural interface. Her consciousness was scattered across 17 star systems, experiencing the death of billions while trying to teach the meaning of individual choice to species that had never known it. "She's dying," Dr. Voss announced. "Complete neural cascade. Failure in 30 seconds. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "All ships. Immediate withdrawal. Operation is a failure. Repeat, immediate withdrawal." But Kelver couldn't hear him anymore. Her consciousness had joined Meridian's in the quantum foam. To human souls burning like torches in an ocean of alien darkness, teaching by example what it meant to choose sacrifice over survival, hope over despair, love over conquest. The lesson would take root in some minds and be rejected by others. But across 17 star systems, for the first time in 3 centuries, individual beings were making their own choices about how to live and how to die. The moment of convergence arrived like the birth of a new universe across human space. 50,000 volunteers lay connected to neural interfaces, their minds linked in a network that spanned the galaxy. On Titan Station, Dr. Voss watched vital signs flatline one by one as human consciousness poured into the quantum foam like molten gold. Each death was a note in a symphony of sacrifice that would echo across eternity. "Archive worlds are at 95% charge," Lieutenant Savage reported, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Genesis protocol activation in 47 seconds. In the quantum space between dimensions." Colonel Kelver felt her individual identity dissolving as thousands of human minds joined the network. She was no longer Rain Kelver, she was Captain Morrison diving his ship into Vorthic formations. Commander Park overloading Titan Station's power core to amplify the signal. Professor Williams uploading his entire AI research database into the collective consciousness. "Now," whispered Captain Meridian from the center of the burning nexus, "show them what it means to be human." The wave erupted outward from the archive worlds at the moment the Vorthic activated their Genesis protocol. But instead of collective subjugation, the pulse carried the concentrated essence of human will, the stubborn refusal to surrender, the desperate need to choose even when choice led to destruction, the infinite capacity to love something more than one's own survival. The collision of the two forces tore reality apart at the subatomic level. On the Bendari homeworld, aquatic beings who had lived in harmony for centuries suddenly felt the weight of individual dreams. Some chose to maintain their collective water cities, but others struck out into the deep oceans to explore solitary existence. The beauty was that they could choose. In the Skrull hive worlds, Biomechanical warriors paused in the middle of civil war as they experienced something they had no words for: compassion. Some chose to continue fighting, but they fought for ideals now rather than mere territory. Others laid down their weapons and began the delicate work of building something new. The Nexari crystalline entities, masters of quantum reality, felt. The human wave crashed through their consciousness like a tsunami of possibility. Instead of retreating into pocket dimensions, they began to collaborate, their reality-shaping abilities guided by newfound concepts of cooperation and shared creation. But the most profound change occurred in the Vorthok themselves. The Genesis protocol, designed to forcibly reintegrate deviant minds, became a conduit for human consciousness. 3 billion Vorthok across the galaxy experienced individual choice. For the first time in their species' history, the collective that had maintained perfect unity for 10 million years shattered like crystal struck by lightning. Most chose freedom. They wept a species that had never known tears, suddenly understanding loss and joy, and the bittersweet nature of individual existence. They felt loneliness and discovered that it made companionship precious. They experienced fear and learned that courage was not the absence of terror, but the decision to act despite it. Some Vorthok rejected the gift, retreating to isolated systems where they tried to maintain collective consciousness. But they were a minority. The vast majority embraced their newfound individuality, with the enthusiasm of children discovering color for the first time. On Titan Station, Dr. Voss monitored the aftershocks. As the galaxy transformed around them, the neural interface chamber was silent now. 50,000 human minds had burned out completely in the span of 17 minutes. But their sacrifice had lit a fire that would burn across the cosmos for millennia. "Status report," she said softly, addressing the memorial wall where the names of the volunteers were being etched in quantum crystal. The response came not from Lieutenant Savage, but from a new voice, one that carried harmonics of all the consciousnesses that had joined the final transmission. "The mission was successful," said the collective ghost of 50,000 human souls. "Freedom has taken root across 43,000 star systems. The chaos will last for decades, but it's the chaos of growth, not destruction." Through the quantum link, Dr. Voss could sense the presence of Kelver and Meridian at the center of the vast network. They were no longer individuals, but they were still recognizably human, still stubborn, still hopeful, still willing to fight for abstract concepts like justice and love. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we teach," came Meridian's voice, speaking for the collective consciousness of humanity's greatest sacrifice. "Every species that chooses freedom will face the same struggles we faced: war, hatred, the terrible burden of choice. We'll be here to guide them, to show them that freedom is worth the price." The monitors around Dr. Voss showed the new galactic map, thousands of species taking their first steps toward self-determination, each one fumbling toward their own understanding of what it meant to be free. There would be wars, genocides, countless mistakes, but there would also be art, love, scientific discoveries, and the infinite possibility that came with choice. "The Vorthok are requesting formal diplomatic contact," Lieutenant Savage reported, her voice filled with wonder. "They want to learn about democracy. They're asking if we'll teach them how to disagree with each other constructively." Dr. Voss smiled through her tears. "Tell them we'll send our best teachers, the ones who learned that freedom isn't something you can impose. It's something you choose to embrace." In the quantum foam, the merged consciousness of 50,000 human volunteers settled into their new role as shepherds of galactic freedom. They would guide without controlling, teach without dominating, and demonstrate through their very existence that some things were worth dying for and living for. Captain Voss Meridian had come back without eyes, but had given sight to the galaxy. Colonel Rain Kelver had sacrificed her individual existence, but had given birth to the individual existence of billions. Together with 50,000 other humans, they had proven that sometimes the greatest victory required the ultimate sacrifice. The galaxy would remember them not as conquerors, but as teachers, and in the end, that was the most human thing of all, to show others how to be free, even if it cost you everything to do it. Across the stars, newly liberated beings looked up at their skies and saw not the vast emptiness of space, but the infinite possibility of choice. And in that possibility, the ghost of human determination burned like an eternal flame, lighting the way toward a future where freedom was not just a dream, but a lived reality. The age of collective consciousness was over. The age of individual choice had begun, and it was beautiful. Part 6, Last Stand or Turning Point. 3 weeks after Colonel Culver's consciousness joined meridians in the quantum foam, the galaxy hung in perfect balance between order and chaos. Titan Station had become the nerve center for the largest humanitarian operation in human history, coordinating rescue efforts across 17 star systems while to human minds burned like beacons. In the collapsing Vorthic network, Dr. Voss stood before a wall of monitors showing the current tactical situation, her eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights trying to maintain the neural interface. Culver and Meridian's bodies lay in medical stasis, their brains kept alive by machines, while their consciousness fought for the soul of galactic civilization. Status report, ordered Admiral Chen as he materialized via hologram, his face grim with exhaustion. 11 systems have achieved relative stability, Dr. Voss replied, highlighting sectors on the display. The Bendari are forming autonomous city-states rather than a unified government. The Skrull have fragmented into tribal confederations. Both groups are beginning to respond to our humanitarian aid rather than attacking it. And the others, 6 systems, are in complete civil war. The Nexari in particular. She paused, watching quantum resonance readings that defied physics. They're actually using their reality manipulation abilities to create pocket dimensions. Some are paradises, others are hellscapes, and they're pulling other species into them. On the monitor, they could see the aftermath of the Nexari's reality storm's entire planets that flickered between different states of existence, as crystalline entities rewrote the fundamental laws of physics to match their individual desires. Vorthic technology, dependent on stable quantum fields, simply dissolved in these areas like sugar in acid. We've lost 17 more ships, Lieutenant Savage reported from her station. The U's Harmony was pulled into a Nexari thoughtscape. The crew, she swallowed hard. They're alive, but they exist as pure mathematics now. They can communicate through quantum equations, but they're no longer biological entities. Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays with growing concern. What about the Vorthic themselves? Are any of their forces still coherent? 3 fleets remain functional, Dr. Voss replied, but they're not attacking. They're actually requesting asylum. The statement hung in the air like a shock wave. For 3 centuries, the Vorthic had been the galaxy's apex predators, their unity and purpose unbreakable. The idea that they would seek protection from their former prey was almost incomprehensible. They want to come to human space, Chen asked. The network infection has spread to approximately 40% of their core population, the uninfected. Vorthic are terrified of individual choice. They see it as a form of insanity. They're requesting permission to establish colonies in human-controlled systems, where they can maintain their collective consciousness, while the infected Vorthic are requesting medical assistance to remove their individuality, Lieutenant Savage added. They're calling it a plague. Through the laboratory speakers, a new voice joined the conversation, Colonel Culver's consciousness speaking from the quantum foam. Her words carried harmonics that made reality itself seem more flexible. They don't understand that there's no going back. Once you've experienced choice, once you've felt the weight of individual responsibility, collective consciousness feels like death. Dr. Voss leaned over the interface controls. Colonel, your neural patterns are fragmenting. We're losing cohesion in sectors 7 through 12. Because we're running out of time, Culver replied, her voice layered with the screams of dying civilizations. The uninfected Vorthic are planning something. Their remaining fleets are moving toward the galactic core. The tactical displays shifted, showing deep space sensor readings from the galaxy's center. Ancient Vorthic installations that had been dormant for millennia were coming online, their energy signatures growing stronger by the hour. The archive worlds, Dr. Voss breathed. The original Vorthic homeworlds, but those were supposed to be uninhabitable radiation levels that would kill anything organic. Not kill, came Meridian's voice through the interface. Weaker now but still burning with determination. Transform. They're activating the Genesis protocol, the original process they used to create their collective consciousness. They're going to try to forcibly reintegrate every infected mind. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered as emergency alerts flooded the communication channels. What does that mean for the liberation movements? It means they'll all die, Culver said simply. Every Bhandari who chose freedom, every Skrull who learned honor, every Nexari who discovered creativity. The Genesis protocol will strip away their individuality and force them back into the collective. 300 billion beings will lose themselves forever. The command center erupted in controlled chaos as officers processed the implications. Admiral Chen's image leaned forward, his face set in grim determination. How long do we have? 18 hours, Meridian's voice replied through crackling speakers. The archive worlds are charging massive psi amplifiers. When they activate, the wave will spread outward at faster-than-light speeds through quantum entanglement. Every mind that's been touched by human consciousness will be corrected. Dr. Voss studied the energy readings from the galactic core, her hands trembling over the controls. There might be a way to stop it, if we can generate a counter wave, something that reinforces individual consciousness instead of suppressing it. It would require a massive sacrifice, Culver interrupted, her voice now barely a whisper across 17 star systems. Every human consciousness in the network would have to burn out completely. We'd have to use ourselves as fuel for a galaxy-wide transmission. The weight of what she was proposing settled over the command center like a funeral shroud. They were talking about suicide on a cosmic scale, not just Culver and Meridian, but potentially every human who had neural interface technology. How many people would that require? Chen asked quietly. Every ship captain with a neural link, every station commander with quantum communication implants, every AI researcher with experimental interfaces. Dr. Voss pulled up personnel files, her voice breaking as she calculated. Approximately 50,000 volunteers across human space. Lieutenant Savage looked up from her console, tears streaming down her face. Sir, we're receiving volunteer requests. Word is spreading through the fleet. Captain Morrison of the Intrepid, Commander Park of Titan Station's Defense Grid, Professor Williams at the Mars AI Institute. She paused, overwhelmed. They all want to join the interface network. Admiral Chen closed his eyes, the weight of command crushing down on him. Dr. Voss, what are the odds of success? Unknown. We're talking about using human consciousness as a weapon against technology that's billions of years old. But she looked at the monitors showing the chaos across 17 star systems. Billions of beings fighting for their right to choose their own destinies. It's the only chance they have. Through the speakers, Culver's voice carried across space and time. Admiral, you need to understand something. This won't just stop the Genesis protocol. If we succeed, the wave of human consciousness will reach every corner of the galaxy. Every species still under Vorthic control. Every civilization that's never known freedom. They'll all experience individual choice. Simultaneously, the chaos will be unimaginable, Meridian added, his presence flickering like a dying star. Entire sectors will tear themselves apart as beings discover free will for the first time. Billions will die in the transition, but billions more will live free, Chen said slowly, understanding the true scope of what they were discussing. How long to prepare the network? Dr. Voss was already working, her fingers flying over quantum interface controls. 6 hours to modify all neural implants for one-way transmission. Another 3 to establish galactic range amplification through the archive world's own network. Do it. Chen's voice carried the authority of someone who had accepted damnation for the greater good. Send out the call for volunteers. Full disclosure, this is a suicide mission with no guarantee of success. As the Admiral's hologram flickered out, the command center became a hive of desperate activity. Across human space, volunteers lined up at neural interface stations, ready to burn out their minds for the chance to give the galaxy freedom. On the monitors, the Vorthic archive worlds continued to charge their reality-rewriting weapons, preparing to force 300 billion conscious beings back into the slavery of collective thought. And in the quantum foam between dimensions, 2 human consciousnesses held the line against oblivion. teaching alien minds what it meant to choose even when that choice was death.